Previously on Nerd Punches Nerd.
But fine, if you don't accept that one,
Oh,
my
I
second
accept
movie
it.
that I was going to pick.
Take it if you want. I just
I don't think it's going to be the nerdiest movie. But
Possible.
that's not my ultimate choice. My ultimate choice is going to have to be Star Wars.
Hello, it's been a couple months since we've last talked, at least in a formal setting. How you doing?
I'm good. I mean, these last couple months have really been a little interesting, but a little bit of a game changer. Not really. I'm still just as nerdy as ever.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, this is Nerd Punches Nerd, and today
Wait, what? Oh, I thought I was on the Loveline podcast, right? That's still going on, right? With
That's
Dr.
right.
Manhattan and Jimmy Kimmel, right?
It never ended, and it's still going on even today. In fact,
Okay.
the last episode starred, I believe, Andy Dick, and he just
Andrew himself, yeah.
never stopped talking. So,
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
even after the cameras turned off, they just said, "Nope, no, I'm sleeping here now," and that's what happened.
Okay, well, I mean, if that's the way it's gotta go, that's the way it's gotta go, you know?
So, I'm Jeremy, and I'm here today with Benj E to
Cool.
talk about the latest Star Wars movie.
Installment, if you will.
Before we get started, I have a question for you. Now, do you recall the order of Star Wars movies that you've seen? Like, do you remember how you went about watching them?
Oh, I do indeed. Should I divulge said information?
Go ahead.
Okay. So the first one we watched was on VHS. From Blockbuster Video. We watched, well, it might have been Blockbuster. It might have been Hollywood Video. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, it was an in-town video rental location, and we got Empire Strikes Back first, which was pretty interesting. And then we watched that, and I actually think that's the only time I've seen Empire Strikes Back in its entirety.
Oh.
Strangely enough, yeah, I gotta get on that. But then I believe I saw, yeah, I saw Return of the Jedi next. And then I saw A New Hope, and then I saw Phantom Menace, and then I saw Attack of the Clones, and then I saw Revenge of the Sith, and then I saw The Force Awakens.
All right, because I remember it a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I first saw Star Wars, I was very young, to the
Mm-hmm.
point where I did not understand what was happening. I thought that they blew up Earth and not Alderaan.
Right.
I do remember thinking that Jed Porkins, the fat X-wing, that's his name,
Oh,
all right?
gee.
His name is Jed Porkins, and he was
Good
originally
old Jed.
going to have a pig nose, but I guess Lucas decided that even
Like, and that was his limit. He's like, well, maybe he should have. He was like really indecisive about it. He's like, should I have the pork nose or should I not? I mean, it still may be a little too subtle. Okay, like he thought the pork nose was a little too subtle.
Well, I had this great idea for like if I knew how to do like animation, I would do like like a James Bond ripoff that was like Porkins, Jack Porkins, and like he'd like stuff into his X-wing like barely fitting. He'd like fall off of it and smash into the Death Star, breaking it in half. That kind of thing. Bad jokes. So
bad jokes.
I remember thinking that he looked a lot like one of my friend's dads, who at the time, in fairness, was pretty overweight, and he had a very similar beard and hair color. But
and a snout-like snout.
But if you had asked me any details, I would not have been able to give it to you. No.
And he probably couldn't command a space fighter or whatever those things are called. X-wing, right? That's what they're called?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, I don't remember exactly the order of which I saw things after that. It was either Empire or Return of the Jedi, and it wasn't in the entire thing either. Because I remember we were all in a hotel once, and part of Return of the Jedi was on, and we watched like the end of it. And then later, the way I remember the VHS thing is that we got them in order. That we got
Right.
Star Wars 1 first, and then Empire and Return of the Jedi. Because I don't know why we would have gotten it out of order. That doesn't make any sense to me.
I think we just got. I think what I'm guessing happened, because I am almost. I can tell you why I'm almost positive that we did Empire Strikes Back first, but I think what happened was, what I'm guessing is that we had been talking somewhere, some way, maybe when we had a family meeting or something, we decided we were going to get Star Wars, and maybe we'd all talked about it or something like that. And
Right.
You know, probably what happened was that the only Star Wars movie that was not sold out at the video rental place was Empire Strikes Back. That's what I'm guessing. And they were just like, okay, whatever, we'll just watch a Star Wars movie. You know what I mean?
Okay, well maybe you're right.
And the reason I'm like 99.7% sure that I didn't see A New Hope first is because besides the fact that I think I remember that way, I remember when I saw the Death Star, the original Death Star, I was like, wait, this looks like that thing from Return of the Jedi, but it's more complete.
Oh, okay.
That's what happened. So I'm pretty sure I saw A New Hope last.
Well, okay, so now I know you saw at least one of the special edition movies in the theater. I guess maybe you don't remember that.
I did see Empire Strikes Back, I'm pretty sure, for the special edition.
Right,
Okay.
so I saw all three of them that year. In '97, they released all three. This was kind of like it was the 20th anniversary of the first one, and they re-released all three, and they would all had been sort of like tweaked in different changes, and I remember for the most part being like okay with it. And the truth is, in those days where it wasn't, or at least my feeling was that I didn't really know what the internet was complaining about because it was in '97, so the places that people tended to argue were like on newsrooms and
you weren't
stuff.
on your hotbot email didn't get any notifications of what they were talking about in the chat rooms.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't even really notice about the Han shot first thing. You know what I'm talking about? Han shot first?
Yeah, right.
Right, so
Right.
in the original, the one we saw on VHS, when Han Solo is approached by Greedo because like ooka booka booka, you owe Jabba money, Han's like, listen, buddy, Greedo shoots him. And he changed it in a special edition for Greedo shooting first, like a second first and then Han shooting. Now, this was so fast that when I saw it in the theater, I didn't notice any difference. I didn't hear about the complaints until later, and then when I actually rewatched it, then it was a lot. I was like, oh, when I was looking for it, I was like, oh, right. And then he changed it later on in a later release to shoot at the same time, because it was almost like, oh, fine, let's shoot at the same time. He was just being kind of a little baby about it, but there's a lot of little things here and there. I mean, I remember the Jabba thing was weird, and he threw a lot of extra CGI in there. And I remember thinking that it was all right. But the thing is, a lot of that stuff does not hold up well, especially not now. Like if you go back, and I have, and look at the stuff, even in the Blu-rays, which I also have, it's like, yuck. So,
yeah.
I think that it's sort of interesting because when you look at like these, like the prequels, I think a lot of people were very much disappointed. Remember, so that's that in '97 you had all these movies released, and then in '99 you had the prequel, and people were really hyped up. The trailers were good. They were good trailers.
The trailers were great, and the big thing is that the Jedi, like, it was a kind of updated fighting style. You know what I mean? Like, people were talking about it, especially people around my age when I was a kid at the time. But we were like, because it actually showed. Like, I remember when I saw the previews, I was like, oh wow, that makes sense because the Jedi's are master warriors. No wonder they're moving so crazily good. Because by the time I saw Star Wars, I thought it was cool. I saw the way they were fighting was cool, but it wasn't like, I mean, maybe for like the late '70s, early '80s, the way that the Jedi's were fighting and moving looked really cool and flashy by those standards. But by the time I saw it, it just looked like typical action movie stuff. Still exciting, but didn't look like they were moving in any special way. But
Well,
when the Phantom Menace came out, that was also around the same time as the Matrix and stuff like that, when people were really upping the ante with
choreography.
battle choreography.
Well,
and,
I mean,
and they also sped up, right? Didn't they speed up the?
yes, there's a little bit of that. I mean, we could talk for hours about issues with the prequels and what worked and what didn't work. I've already had conversations with people about it even recently, but that's not what the point is. There's some of these things we can tie into when we talk about number 7.
Right.
But I think a lot of people were very much disappointed. Even now, I think mainly because of Jar Jar Binks, people say Phantom Menace is the worst. They're wrong. Attack of the Clones is the worst.
Yeah, Attack of the Clones is definitely the worst.
But when the trailer for Force Awakens was coming out, I saw the teaser and then the teaser trailer. I did not watch the trailer because then I thought that's probably gonna have dialogue. I don't really want to see that.
Right.
I couldn't help watching those first two things just because there was just like I had to see a little bit. And I thought that I guess you still haven't seen them, right?
Yeah, no. I tried to avoid. I saw the first teaser.
Right.
That's it. Because I wanted to, I guess, somewhat wet my palate, you could say.
But, yeah. And especially because the very first teaser, there was a guy who did like a special edition version where they put in like all like a lot of the crap that he put in with the special edition changes. Like
I saw that.
like when Kylo Ren is which I didn't know his name at the time, was like stomping through the woods. He passes by the ghost of Hayden Christensen.
Yep.
And then so there's all like there was like a Han shot first thing where when Han Solo gets shot, his head like moves like ridiculously, like they CGI'd it terribly, so it looks like a bobblehead. And so they did that with Poe Dameron when he's flying, except his head goes boop doop with like a shot comes at him. It was the same kind of nonsense.
Right.
But so that was what I did. I tried to stay away from any discussion of characters' names or any speculation. I couldn't, unfortunately, just by seeing headlines. Sometimes I heard things like people saying, "Where's Luke in the movie?" Like, I don't want to hear that. I don't care where he is or not.
Right.
And then but this was before people had even seen the movie. People were just speculating based off of like the trailers and the promotional material and stuff. Because it's not like he wasn't around during promotion of the actual movie. It's just like he wasn't in any of the trailers. Of course, now we know why that was, but I'm just saying it was like, and then they're all like, oh yeah, okay, so this guy's the evil guy. And like, Entertainment Weekly would have like, here's the evil characters and here are the good characters. Like, no, I don't want to read that.
Right.
So I would like skip past that stuff. Unfortunately, I couldn't help but like just pick up little bits and pieces here and there. And then, when I went to see it with my buddy Yehuda, you remember him? He said, yeah, I've been trying to stay away from spoilers too. And it's like, he said, like, although I heard that like Luke isn't in it very much. And I said, well, why would you say that? Why would you say that to me?
I know. I've been pretty successful at like not having a lot of spoilers thrown at me because I just go blah, 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 blah. I get very obnoxious about it. But
right.
I finally saw it today, so
right. So let's talk about it, and of course there will be spoilers for it. So let's just start.
What? Jeremy, can you do a spoiler alert, please?
Okay.
For the
spoilers, ahoy! Ahoy! Spoilers. So.
I'm glad you did that spoiler alert. That's an all-encompassing one.
All right. So first impressions. What do you feel?
First impressions are, I liked it. I would not have liked it as much if it weren't Star Wars. I liked certain things they did with the overall story. That the plot itself of this movie was kind of forced, and that I'm very glad that Adam from Girls was in it. That was a little bit of a shocker. So those are my initial first impressions. But so yeah, do you want to say yours or should I elaborate a bit on that?
Well, I remember like when I walked out, I was like, I liked it. Yeah. And I will say the more I've thought about it, the more I've liked it. as well. So it's one of these things where, as I've considered it and as I've talked about it, the more I've read people's stupid complaints and nitpicks, the more I've
Hmm.
liked it. Especially because there definitely are issues, and it's not a perfect movie. But then I see
Hmm.
someone who's like blah 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 0 out of 10. I'm like, you know what? Screw you. Now I like it
Yeah. Well, I
more
mean, you
because
can't.
of
You also
that.
can't avoid it because there's so much fandom stuff around it.
I know, but
I should
come
make before
on.
we get into specifics. I should also make the point that I think really what it sounds kind of sad, but I don't think it's actually so bad when you think about it. But I think people just really we just really needed a Star Wars that was at least a little bit better than the prequels.
I think it's a
I think
lot better than the prequels.
no, I know, but I think that's all we really needed for the time being. Seriously, so we can
Right,
steer it in some other direction.
right.
Because the thing about it is that the overall the pantheon or saga or whatever is interesting and good, and people want it, and people really want it to be good. So you know, I it was in terms of a movie itself, it was kind of a fun action movie, but the connections this is one of those examples where you cannot separate the context from it. You know what I mean? I mean, there was no doubt there was going to be some like uh, fan service stuff or some things like, oh, remember this guy or this guy. You know what I mean? Just like stuff like that. But it was
Hmm.
not. It didn't hit you over the head with it too much. I thought there were times it was going to hit you over the head too much with some of that stuff. Like, remember this thing. They did do that, but it wasn't so bad. I don't know. You know, they're in a tough situation where it's they really kind of gotta skirt this line pretty severely because
Hmm.
even though I have my pick of directors and screenwriters who I think would do a better job with the movie, I understand why they're not going to go with someone who's like a little more cutting edge, or they kind of have to do someone who's gonna be who's gonna be I don't know a palatable to a wide audience,
Right.
but still better than George Lucas, you know, and better than Roland Emmerich
Right.
and Michael Bay.
I mean, the thing is, it's
So,
funny, like, considering how much J.J. Abrams has done, he's done a lot more TV than movies.
mm-hmm.
What did he do? He did Mission Impossible 3, there's two Star Trek movies, Super 8,
Cloverfield, right?
No, he didn't direct that, he just produced that one.
Oh, okay.
He, Super 8, which was like his Spielberg homage, and now Star Wars, and that's it. That's 5 movies he's directed.
I mean,
So,
for a director in Hollywood, that's still pretty good.
well, I mean, it's good also considering, what he's made out of them. And I'm not saying it's like, oh, look at this guy, he's only made 5 movies. I mean, obviously he's been in the business since the 90s. So it's like, it's not like he hasn't been doing stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I look at him like a better Zack Snyder, I guess you could say. Like, I don't think he's that amazing. But I think he's got a little more substance than just fun stuff. There's a little more there. I just don't think it's like a lot. And whatever, that's
Right.
fine. Like I can handle it for Star Wars. For Star Trek, it was like,
Well, it's
you know.
funny because you're saying like you think you'd like someone more cutting edge.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess who's directing the next one? It's a
Oh, it's not JJ. I thought he's doing the
Nope,
whole next.
this is the only one.
Oh,
It's Ryan Johnson. Ryan Johnson did Brick and Looper, and he also
okay.
directed a couple episodes of Breaking Bad, including Ozymandias.
Oh, okay, okay. Now that's cool that they're doing that. They're changing it up. But who's is Lawrence Kasdan is screenwriting? I know he's one of two, but is he screenwriting? Is he writing the next one too?
He is.
Yeah.
He is. In fact, supposedly it's already been written, and they're just, because remember, this is supposed to come out, you know, I think 2017, I believe, is the answer.
Wait, did Lawrence Kasdan do any of the original Star Wars? Didn't he?
Yeah, that's right. He did this. He did the second two. So actually, it's
Okay.
funny. I was just
Right.
talking about this with Daniel. So George Lucas is the sole screenwriter for the first one.
Right.
In the second one, he provided the story, but Lawrence Kasdan and this other guy were the main screenwriters. George Lucas was only credited as story, not screenplay or director. For the third movie, Return of the Jedi, he is a screenwriter again with Lawrence Kasdan. And this
Okay.
one is, it's like Lawrence Kasdan, J.J. Abrams also helped, etc.
So is there any one particular person who's overseeing the whole thing, that's like producing the whole thing?
Oh, well, yeah, J.J. Abrams is, and so is
That's what. Yeah,
Kathleen,
yeah, okay,
and Kathleen Kennedy as well.
right.
She's like, executive producer type. I'll tell you what I'm a little is interesting, but I'm also kind of worried about, which is the third one. We aren't even at the second one yet, but it's Colin Trevorrow, who he did Jurassic World, and he also did this indie film, Safety Not Guaranteed. It was just one of the same things that they did with Spider-Man and Fantastic Four, where they take an indie director and then throw him up to make a huge blockbuster. And
Right.
Spider-Man did decently. Of course, it definitely made a profit, even if it wasn't critical success.
Which Spider-Man was it?
The new one, Amazing Spider-Man.
Okay.
And Fantastic Four obviously was a bomb. And Jurassic World is the second most profitable movie of 2015. So,
And the second worst.
oh, please. There were like two different Adam Sandler movies. But
Uh, hey, don't speak about my boy that way. All right, so
well,
let's get so I think we should get to some like specifics.
right.
About, I mean, should we just do a pro and con list discussion with them, or should we, and
Uh,
talk over each of those, or
yeah,
what do you want?
well, why don't you start by telling me the problems that you had?
It started off. I think it did. The first 5 minutes were pretty strong, which is not insignificant if the first 5 minutes are strong. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was good. How like it really showed. I mean, like, it could have just been like a cookie cutter like bad guy stuff happening, but they come in and they question a village. They take it over and then they kill everyone. That's pretty intense.
Right.
So I think that sets up
Well,
some good antagonism. But
right.
what I didn't like, I mean, after that, I mean, most of the movie was pretty forced. I mean, like, okay, so here's the thing. The reason I'm saying it was good in the beginning is also there was enough of a realistic motivation for Finn for him to like get to leave. They did a good job with that, like just showing having like it's like they switched perspective for a second. It was a cool way they switched perspective
Yeah.
onto him when he's fighting. He sees his like comrade die, and then the blood, is on the helmet. That was like a good image,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see he's shaken up, and like that was good because when he just said, because it's the right thing to do, that was kind of dumb. But luckily we had the stuff beforehand that showed, okay, we already kind of understand why he's doing it. But still, it was kind of forced. Like, I mean, just so much the motivation. This thing happens and this thing happens because of this thing, and it was just like it was, sort of predictable. Sort of just like we have to move the story along. We have to have this thing happen, you know what I mean? Just like they had a bunch of bullet points and things they had to get through, and they did. So that was my issue, overall, with it. I'm trying to think if there are any other like glaring issues. I mean, you know, I sort of didn't like how good Finn was with a lightsaber. I mean, it sort of makes sense, like because
Well,
he was trained as a fighter, so
right.
he had some level of competency. So
At which point did you have a problem?
the last fight, it was really like
Oh,
the last.
well, don't forget, at that point, Kylo Ren had already been like shot in the chest
Oh right, yeah,
by Chewie, and
okay,
despite that, he still almost killed Finn.
yeah, that's true, and okay, yeah, so it wasn't the worst. I mean, and the Han Solo thing clearly was forced, but I'm fine with
Forced?
it. Like
What do you mean
like
forced? I mean, I think it was
well,
definitely
no, not for
Corey. It was definitely foreshadowed. You could see that it was coming. I mean, they kind of made it clear that
yeah.
he
No,
was
no.
gonna
It
die.
actually wasn't bad. I'm just, you see, I'm saying is I feel like a lot of the stuff that was forced was like just above the level of making me groan like, but it was fine. Like I'm still fine with it. So like
Hmm.
I could, they had to have the whole like not foreshadow. What's it like? I guess callback. Obviously Han Solo's on the bridge, and it's like a son killing a father
Right.
off of like a scaffolding or bridge or whatever. A la
Right.
Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. I mean,
Yes.
that was very obvious. I mean, it's fine. Like I don't have such an issue with that. I didn't think necessarily Finn and Rey's chemistry was that great, but it didn't need to be. And clearly, they're going to try to build stuff up over time. But the prequels track record was not very good with creating chemistry. That might have been some of the worst examples of on-screen chemistry in the history of cinema.
Well, I thought the chemistry here was pretty good. I mean, I thought like Poe and Finn had a really good chemistry.
Oh no, I'm talking about like love and like romantic chemistry.
I don't think it was like meant to be like romantic, per se. I mean,
Yeah,
like
they might do one of those things where it's like I think actually like they were trying to hint at it like she doesn't need anyone. Like they were definitely
well,
like throwing that in there a bit.
true, but I
They didn't hit
mean,
you over the head with it
I
again.
think
Like
well, think about it this way. Okay, so Rey is clearly like by herself. She's had to stick up for herself for a
yeah,
very
yeah,
long time. She's never really had anyone of support. And Finn, he had that friend who he saw die. And other than that, has he ever had anyone who's treated him like an individual? Poe is the first one, obviously. He literally gives him a name. So obviously he's going to latch onto that. But then when he thinks Poe is dead, he's like, well, now I have no one. So when he sees that Rey is in trouble, he goes to help her out. Of course, I thought
yeah,
that was a great
yeah.
scene where like
Why does he didn't know?
he's
Yeah,
running over to help her, and like before he can get there, she's already like beating them up. And
yeah.
then he's like, then the droid's like, hey, look, what? And then she starts running towards him, and he's like, uh-oh. I thought that was pretty
I mean,
funny.
how does he have? I guess like
Well, my point
because I'm
is
saying, how does he have social skills? So I guess like
social
anyway,
skills.
I guess he was. So I guess the whole point is that he wasn't just like a drone or whatever. It was just he was trained
No,
to be
they're
in the
just
army. So
yeah,
he was brainwashed, in terms of a military mindset, but not actually a clone. Because they mentioned how there were like
right. They're
differences.
not clones. They
Right,
explicitly say that he was
right,
basically taken as a kid. Like they show a picture of him as a kid when they're
right,
talking about him.
right.
That he was taken as a kid, and it's like, well, you want to go back to clones? They kind of make that a little joke, which it
Mm-hmm.
could be a joke at the prequels' expense too. In fact, I think it probably
Right,
was.
probably was.
But I think the point is they're saying, hey, yeah, these, we raise them from birth, we like indoctrinate them. But I think the point here is that despite all the indoctrination, the fact that he had this friend, when he saw his friend die, he kind of
Mm-hmm.
had PTSD. He's like, then he realizes, wait a minute,
Yeah.
and then he's like, just kill all the villagers. He couldn't do it. He's like, I can't kill these innocent people.
Mm-hmm.
Yet,
Yeah.
so he was okay killing the other stormtroopers because he's sort of saying, these are not innocent. I've sort of changed my mindset on that. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that a reason that they like connected is that they were both sort of being like, hey, it's someone that I can actually talk to, I can connect with, and
Uh-huh.
so yeah, he was saying like, hey, you got a boyfriend, a cute boyfriend.
Uh-huh.
I think it's just like, hey, look, you see a really attractive girl that you're kind of impressed by, you
Mm-hmm.
know. I
Yeah.
mean,
They're I mean, they're clearly setting up something there. Now it may be that they'll follow, I guess, in sort of the Guardians of the Galaxy footsteps of like, they won't actually like get together or whatever, or in the sense of like they might make you think they're going to be together, or Frozen.
well,
You
it's
know what I
funny that you
mean?
say that because I definitely, of any deficiencies I had with the movie, that was not one of them. I thought that they did have a good chemistry.
Okay.
My
Yeah.
issues
Go
were
ahead.
really more about certain.
The dialogue was kind of dumb too, but it wasn't the worst.
Mm,
Sorry, go ahead.
okay, well, okay, I don't agree with that either. Uh, I thought that the dialogue was very good, but
It was good. It was good enough.
good enough. Okay, I
No,
mean,
it was just standard
standard what?
whatever.
I mean, I
I
thought
guess maybe Star Wars has never been known for its like amazing dialogue necessarily. Well, some things have been good, but
yeah, but this isn't like George Lucas crap here.
right. No, it was better. No, it was definitely an upgrade, like overall. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there were a few things here and there, but for the most part, that wasn't an issue I had. And my issues were that I thought there were a few too many references to the original trilogy, and
There were a few. There should have been more. You're saying?
no, there were two. I said a few too many.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I
despite
agree.
little things here and there, where it's like, hey, we've got this new Death Star. It's like a super Death Star. And, it's funny when Han Solo is like, why don't we just blow it up? There's always a way to blow it up. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, yeah, that's funny. But, it's almost like, did we have to have this? I liked also Sam's perspective where he was saying, what if it had already fired and then they disable it?
Mm-hmm.
Or what if they didn't blow up the planet and just disable it, so it's not like, quite the same as
So we should
in New Hope?
say Sam's point. What Sam was responding to was saying, people were complaining, saying there wasn't a lot of emotional resonance when they destroyed, the Senate, when they destroyed the New
The
Republic.
Republic, yeah.
Now, I both agree with what Sam's saying, but in terms of like the structure of it, but I think also one of the issues is that we barely even saw the Republic or the Senate,
Right.
in the movie, so there wasn't a lot of emotional connection there. I think that's what really a lot of the issue is too.
Yeah,
Like,
but we didn't really have much of that even in the original one either. I mean, when they blow up Alderaan, I mean, yeah, it's Leia's home planet, but it's almost like it's
yeah, I guess that's true.
we're so disconnected. Like the main things happen later on. Like, Obi-Wan has I just feel like millions of Force, people cried out and then were silenced. That's more effective than seeing it. Like here we actually like see people on the planet as the like lights coming and they're like, we know
Yeah,
what's about to
that was
happen.
good,
I mean, and
and
that's
that
and
was
that's
good, but
that's essentially the same kind of thing as Obi-Wan noticing it. So it's like we don't have time. I think that what I read is that apparently there were some scenes on those planets, but they just had to cut it out because it was too long.
yeah, I can see that, and it's like I don't know, like I could. They have a lot of balls to juggle in the air. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like I sort of see that, and they have to. They also had. I mean, that's part of it. Of why I was saying I think it was fine with some things they kind of forced into it or put into it because they had to really punt, like they couldn't make it super lame. They had to avoid it from being a really lame thing. So in order to
Mm-hmm.
do that, I could see. So first of all, killing Han Solo, I actually didn't expect that. In the movie, I saw it was going to happen once he got onto the bridge, but
Yeah, I
they did that.
mean, he
They
knew that was a strong possibility. Otherwise, because
yeah.
he was hiding and he yells out his son's name.
Hmm.
He knew this will probably end badly, but I have to do it.
Hmm.
And in fact, I really thought that worked really well. I liked,
Yeah, yeah.
even after he gets stabbed, he like holds his son's, face, like
Hmm.
saying, I still love you. Just, and, I also liked how Chewie immediately, like, shot him, and I felt really bad for Chewie in particular.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, of course.
It's kind of like heartrending when you see him, like, flying the Falcon by himself.
Yeah,
And you're like,
and
oh,
also like Chewie, like part of it is also like Chewie doesn't give a shit about. I mean, not that he would purposely try to harm like Han Solo's kid or whatever, but like like
well, after
he
listen, after his son stabs him, he's like, I don't care anymore. Come on.
right. Yeah, yeah. Actually, Chewie was good in the movie too. So
Yes, I agree with
so
that.
so do you want to go on to I guess things that we liked or thought worked well, which we sort of have talked about?
Yeah, well, so for
Why
me,
don't you go ahead? Yeah.
the thing that matters more to me in this kind of sense is the characters. And
Right. Right.
the truth is, when you think about like how this stuff went through, and there are little things here and there, and there's a lot of repeats. To me, it's the character beats that worked. I mean, all of the new characters that we really learned anything about. Yeah, sure, Brienne of Tarth didn't get very much,
Mm.
but
Who did she play?
Captain Phasma, the head of the stormtroopers.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that was her.
Oh, I didn't. I recognized her voice, but the there was another cameo that I didn't recognize until afterwards, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess that is his voice. You remember the stormtrooper that she mind tricks? That was
Yeah.
the voice of Daniel Craig.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
Okay.
there was another cameo. Well, there are a lot of little cameos. Like the guy from Hamilton is in it, for example. But
Really? Who did
yeah,
he play?
just one of the musicians.
Lin-Manuel Miranda?
That's right. He's one of the
Uh,
musicians in the bar they go to. But the like remember
And that music was pretty good.
yeah. So you remember when they go to when like in the beginning when Ray is like, is like trying to like get here's some junk. That's a quarter portion. That was played by Simon Pegg,
Who's
who
Simon Pegg again?
he is the guy who played Scotty in the Star Trek movies. He was in Hot.
You mean the Shaun of the Dead guy?
That's right. I was going to say Shaun of the Dead. Hot Fuzz.
He's Benji
That's
in Mission
right.
Impossible.
Very good. Which is
Perfecto.
which is in fact the one that J.J. Abrams first met him at. Which
Oh,
and that's why they kept
cool.
working together. And this was just like a little. It's sort of funny. So now Simon Pegg has been in both Star Wars and Star Trek movies,
Mm-hmm.
and considering he's like a huge nerd, I think that's a big. It's a big deal for him.
That's good. And you know what? I think it would be. It's not going to happen probably, but definitely not. Or probably not going to happen. But Tom Cruise would be good in Star Wars.
Well, he would be. Well, you'd have to have the right
There would be a
role.
lot of hate on it, but he would be good. He's totally.
You need.
I mean, he'd be the same though as a Sith and as a Jedi. Those Tom Cruise jerks.
Well, yeah, it's just. It's sort of like this. You need the right writer and director. Because look at it this way: Samuel L. Jackson was so badly done in those prequels, but it didn't have to be. He really didn't have to be.
Yeah,
because he would have been game. He would have been game for anything. He was so happy to be in those movies.
Yeah,
but
I mean the only good performances, I really only Christopher Lee pretty much was the best out of everyone.
Liam Neeson.
Oh, Liam Neeson, yes, of course.
I know that's a bit controversial because he's a fan of Menace and all that, but also Christopher Lee was given such crap. Why don't we fight with lightsabers, Yoda? That makes perfect sense. We do.
No, but I'm saying Christopher Lee is just so well versed at being a villain that he did the part well, I'd say. But anyway, whatever. Keep going.
What makes the Emperor mad? The One Ring? Yeah.
The One Ring.
What was the line that Gandalf says to Saruman?
Tell me, friend, when did Saruman the Wise abandon reason for madness?
Okay, so it would have to be when did Dooku the Jedi abandon the light side for the Sith?
When did madness?
Madness! I can't do Yoda.
whatever order Yoda would say this.
Well, it's inverted.
Leave the dark side, leave the light side, you do. Whatever.
Yeah, right. So, but so there are if there's a few things aside, so there's three new bad guys now. Snoke. I mean, yeah, he's played by Andy Serkis, but I didn't really get much from him, so that was a bit of a weakness.
I was glad to find out it was Andy Serkis.
Yeah.
So I disagree with you there. I mean, I thought he was kind of a good character. He's kind of mysterious. We're not really sure who this guy is. I think it was fine they didn't reveal a lot about him.
Well, I like the little trick where you think he's a giant, but then it turns out it's just a hologram. I was like, oh, that's cool.
I didn't realize he wasn't a giant. I realized it's the hologram thing.
Oh, yeah, because I was like,
I guess it makes sense because the Emperor's head really okay.
It does make sense, but I guess they improved the technology for for holograms because he looked much more solid than the intentional not solid way that they used to do it. And I like
we all know that Snooki is 20 feet tall.
Oh, please, don't talk about 2013 like that.
So
I like Domhnall Gleeson. He was like the General Hux, who was like the actual Nazi.
Yeah. That's good, and it was good to have. What's the name? What's Adam's name in this?
Kylo Ren.
Yeah, Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
that was good for him to have. You know what I mean? Have like another conflict that he had to deal with.
Right, a guy that he can't just kill. Although it's funny, we don't actually see him kill any of his fellow Imperial people. Like he like chokes one of the people, but he doesn't kill him.
Well, that's part of the thing. I think it's great because the whole thing is his whole thing is that he's trying to see he's enough. Like he's trying to prove that he's enough of a Sith Lord. You know what I mean? That he can live up to Darth Vader. And he's like struggling with that he's like enough. And that's also part of the thing because he's kind of trying to learn the way of the dark side,
Right.
you know, and trying to, and he sort of believes in, or at least is trying to prove it. And the whole thing with the general is just this like, and you see also that look on his face, that like orgasmic release.
Yeah,
when
of ordering, like yelling out the hateful stuff. Definitely, no,
Yeah,
you're right.
they're notable when the Death Star shoots. You know what I mean? Like his face is like, oh, and I
Right.
jizzed in my pants.
Yeah.
So
Well,
he
I don't know if you remember, Donald Gleason was also an Ex Machina.
he was.
Yes, he was the nerdy guy.
Huh?
The guy. There's only like 3 people in that movie.
The nerdy guy. What?
Not Oscar Isaac. The other guy.
No, he was. Oh, he was the main guy, right? Right, the only other guy in the movie.
No, I'm just saying it's kind of funny.
Him.
This is what I like. Like
Him.
it's showing that's real versatility because this is a
Yeah,
very
that's what I'm
different
saying. I
performance.
didn't recognize him.
I
I guess
mean,
that's 2 people from Ex Machina.
yeah, that's right. Now we just need to have
Lewin
the other
Davis
ones.
and whatever that other guy's name is.
Inside Time.
Darkseid.
Yeah, that's right. General
Yeah, but
Darkseid.
once again, it's a good balance also too, because you see these 2 other, you could say, manifestations of the dark side, or just 2 different things. Because just like one guy's trying to learn like the way, and he's got his own personal stuff, and the general even says to him like, don't get your personal feelings like in this. And this guy just wants power and order, and conquest, you know what I mean,
Right.
and purity probably because he's fascist, so that like. I think so. That's
Right.
cool because they're different.
Well,
It gives them nuance to.
it's
the
interesting
dark.
that you say that because purity stuff aside, everything is diverse. Obviously, the stormtroopers can be anything, and there actually are female stormtroopers that we hear, not just the leader, not just
Mhm.
Brienne. Like there's just some
Right.
other random stormtroopers we hear that are, and I thought it was very interesting how careful they were about being inclusive. Now, apparently, one of our parents' friends who they went to see it with was complaining it was too politically correct.
Well,
But
so
you know,
I mean, so I like that is something I was thinking of in the background of it. I mean, obviously, I don't care. They're, like obviously, like there's no issue with having any non-white or non-male people in the movie. But it is one of those things that I've become more and more aware of. Is just like, this is definitely not the first movie that's done it, but it's definitely a conscious decision to put, let's have more female roles in here. Let's have a black guy, in a role in this movie, even though that's already happened.
right. Although
That
Finn
was the whole thing with Lando.
was just written generically, he
Right.
wasn't written with any, visual thing in mind.
Right.
I mean, Rey was of course written as a girl, but that's about it.
Yeah.
But
Listen, I'm, like this is the type of thing that Hollywood definitely does. It's like, they like to kind of pat themselves on, different filmmakers. They're like, oh, being progressive by doing this or that. Now, I personally don't think it's a problem. I don't like it when like Hollywood gets too self-congratulatory. Just like the whole thing with like the Princess and the Frog. Yeah, it's good they were doing like a Black Disney princess, but I was like, okay, cool. Like after was it 2010, 2011? Like, good for you, Disney.
yeah,
2010,
well,
2000. After about 70 years
but
or
yeah,
whatever,
but
you have a black princess. Like, oh, good for you.
right. So
You know what I mean?
the prequels actually had some additional diversity, but it still was regressive in other ways.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely sidelined Padme pretty significantly, and that was definitely an issue.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point is it like I think having that push to do it and to be more diverse. I think it's more personally. I think it's more positive than it is negative to do it. I do sometimes think, as I've said about Game of Thrones, I do think sometimes there's this like pandering, this like progressive pandering that happens. I just like roll my eyes, like, do you have to be that heavy-handed with it? I don't think it was too bad with Star Wars,
Yeah, but a lot of that stuff is pandering in a way that they think people want to see. Like it's like, oh look, people are talking about how everyone likes gay people, and
Right.
it just it doesn't make sense with the characterization. But in
Right.
here, nothing seems inorganic. Like none of these people seem
I guess
like
the
they don't
only
make
thing
sense.
is just having is just the thing is they were doing some of like the girl power, sort of stuff there. I didn't have a problem with it. I feel like they were pushing that a little bit maybe, but I guess what you were saying makes sense with the whole thing with Rey, like she had to like fend for herself and
Right.
and all that.
Everything
So it
made
makes
sense.
actually.
And not only that, but when I was point about politically correct is it is, and that's actually a good thing in this case because it's think about it this way, think about all the girls or even boys watching this who see this set of diverse characters as heroes.
Uh-huh.
I think that's pretty great, really.
Well, that's interesting actually because months and months ago, I was talking to a friend of mine. I was talking to her boyfriend, who happens to be black. But no, but one thing was interesting because I hadn't really thought of this perspective. He was really into Star Wars, and we just sort of got to talking about it. And one of the reasons he said that he was into, when I asked him about it, one of the first things he said was that it was really cool that they had an awesome character. They had an awesome, black character in Star Wars. So him as a kid, that was like a big deal to him. So that was one of the reasons he got really into Star Wars. In addition to some other things, but that was the thing. He was even expressing some I don't, not to say concern, but just he didn't totally like the fact that like one of the black characters was a stormtrooper. This was by the time I think just the first teaser had come out.
Right.
I guess I see what he's saying. I think.
Well,
I
now
think Finn actually does end up looking good, but I think maybe not enough had come out about the Finn character.
Yeah, when you're just looking at the teaser, that's nothing. I think when you look at like Finn is a very, at least in my opinion, he's a very interestingly dimensioned character.
Mm-hmm.
He has motivations. You understand where he's coming from, and he's not like a dick. He's not like a gloomy Gus. I loved like how he and Poe had this camaraderie, and he's like, man, that was some great fun, and he's like, yeah, well, that was some great shooting, and they're just like, we did a great job, and they're like, they're just like enjoying it. And I also like the callback later when they're getting saved, and he's like, man, damn, that is one hell of a pilot. And of course, it is Poe, but he doesn't know that, and he was just like so happy. That's John Boyega, who's acting, and I'd only seen him in Attack the Block, where he was definitely great. So I remember when I heard that he was cast for Star Wars, I was like, oh, that's great. He's a really good actor. Although it's funny that he's not using his British accent in the movie. Maybe they thought it was too low class because he's got a bit of a Cockney accent.
Yeah, well, no, he was good, and like it was good because it was a totally new character, and like he's like a young guy, and he's sort of like thrown into this whole thing, so it's kind of also an exciting adventure for him,
Well, yeah, but I also liked how he's like, he's been there with the First Order, so he's just afraid. He thinks we can't fight against them. We just need to get as far away as possible and just like try to live our lives. But
that happens with the brainwashing too. If obviously he thinks they're more insurmountable, then people might be fighting against them. But yeah,
right.
Go ahead.
So, I think we didn't get that much of Poe. I mean, Oscar Isaac I think is phenomenal. Obviously you saw him in Ex Machina, so you already knew that he was great from there. He was great in Inside Llewyn Davis. All extremely different characters, and
he's coming up as like a noticeably good and great and versatile actor.
Right now he's going to play Apocalypse also. So I hope.
Is he really? That's awesome.
Yes.
That's really cool.
Yes, it is.
I'd say either he or Tom Hardy would be really great as Apocalypse.
Yeah. So I think.
I'm just always excited to hear about Apocalypse. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, he's just really awesome. So, of course, Mom is like really like enamored with him.
Really?
Yeah, so I was like, I sent her a bunch of like videos and stuff about him charming people and like everyone on the set.
Do you want to get inside Llewyn Davis?
That was a joke in 2013 when that movie came out. So I appreciate you waiting 2 years to tell me.
No problem.
Oh no, you're right. It was 2014. So
yeah,
he's still great. Just in the little bits that we see. and that's sort of the corollary to the BB-8 character.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's really difficult when you want to add like a cute new thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I really think they pulled it off with this
Yeah,
guy.
yeah, I'd agree. I'd
And
agree. And it wasn't too derivative too that you felt it's like just
hmm
yeah. And once again, he was kind of like a younger, more puppyish R2D2 in a lot of ways.
right.
Yeah. So that was great. I don't know if that was intended as a joke. And I feel like they could have done a little more of it, but like
Which
with
part?
C-3PO, when like he comes over to Han Solo and Han Solo's like, oh, and he's like,
Oh no!
hello.
Of course it was meant as a joke. Did you see his face? No, I loved it.
Yeah,
No, of course no. We haven't even gotten to that part. But like, yes, when Han
yeah,
Solo sees Leia, and it's been years, and they share a look, and there's like, and he's about to say something, and then C-3PO's head just pops into the frame. It's like, oh
yeah.
hello, Han Solo. You probably don't recognize me. It's C-3PO.
Red arm.
Of course. And you look at the Han Solo's face. It's like,
Yeah, that
this
was a
is the
great
actual reason why I left.
Yeah, it was pretty great.
But getting back to BB-8, what
Yeah.
you probably don't know is that Bill Hader actually helped create his voice, his sound effects.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't like his actual voice per se, but he used like a sound app on his iPad with
Really?
connected to a talk box. So it actually is partially translating his actual mouth, like his sounds.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, Bill Hader actually played BB-8. Sort of like how R2D2 was also played by something, I forget what, some music or something,
Mm-hmm.
which they digitized. So it's the same thing for BB-8, which is kind of cool. What did you think of the thumbs up scene?
That was all right.
I thought it was funny, but I've heard mixed people about that one. I think, yeah, and so before we get into the other new character, what did you think of Leia and Han?
It was all right. I
So
mean, you know, I thought it was I thought it was good enough, and she didn't have like a crazy. At first I was thinking like she didn't have a strong enough reaction to hearing about Han Solo's death row, but actually, first of all, she felt it.
yeah,
That was kind of the thing, and also I think she kind of knew and she kind of accepted it.
yeah. Well,
Like then,
she knew that he might not be coming back,
hmm
and then obviously she felt him die. So it was sort of like,
yeah,
when she comes back and she sees like Rey, she's like, I think part of that is just like, I know that this girl
hmm
was there and she's clearly feeling it. That's why she went over to comfort her. She
hmm
went over to comfort her because she was like, this girl needs my help. Which is,
uh-huh,
so I like that. But what did you
right.
think of Leia and Han in general?
I mean, that's what I thought. I thought it was all right. I mean, I thought there was some chemistry there, and it
No,
sort of made sense. Like they
sorry.
couldn't really
Let
stay
me let me
together, you
rephrase.
know.
What did you think of the two characters and their performance in the movie, not their connection to each other?
Oh. I thought Harrison Ford was good. Um, he I mean, it was interesting because he obviously he's older, so he can't move around as quickly. But that's actually fine. That works with the character.
Yep.
It makes sense that he's not going to be so fast and everything, and he's not as good as he used to be. But he still knows how to do stuff.
Yeah, and
You know.
considering he's 73, I
hmm
think he moved
Yeah.
pretty well. Uh, I
Yeah.
I I really liked it. I mean, I thought that he was really like kind of embracing the character again. He was showing
hmm
up. He was caring about it.
He
It did,
was. Yes, that's the thing because that's like a thing Harrison Ford has had an issue with for a while that he just doesn't seem to really care about the
right.
roles, but he did actually seem to care about
Yeah,
this
like
role.
even in Return of the Jedi, it sometimes seemed like there are some scenes where you're like, come on, dude. And and like it definitely in Indiana Jones of the Crystal Skull, it's just like you're just you're not really acting here, are you? You're just
So
like, I'm just here to say some lines and get paid.
dialing the phone, yeah.
Yeah, and here, I felt like he was really embodying that character again. Like he had like the immediate chemistry with Chewbacca
Yeah.
that I really liked. It's like
Yeah, no, that was
we're
good.
gonna get
That
out of this the way I always do by talking way out. Chewbacca's like, just like,
yeah.
yeah, no, yes. Wait, what was the second time? And, I thought that they had a great, it's like, okay, I've heard some people complain like, why is he a smuggler again? And I think, well, it makes sense. For a while he wasn't when he was raising his kid, but then after the kid, left, when he clearly probably killed a bunch of people, and I think then it's sort of like Luke and disappeared, and then so Leia and Han kind of split up because they couldn't stand being around each other. You kind of understand. In a way, it's like if if parents have the death of a kid early, sometimes that can break up a marriage because they just can't. There's just too much pain seeing each other. And it's sort of this. I think that's sort of a parallel to what happened with this guy, with Kylo Ren. And so in a way, he kind of did die. That's often the metaphor they use, where they talk about how like Anakin Skywalker is dead, Darth Vader is the one who's alive now.
Yeah. So and then I guess Leia. I mean, actually, I thought that was kind of a good transition as she became a general. That sort of makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I heard from Mom didn't think she acted very well, but I think all things considered, she did a decent job. And I thought like her interactions with Han, I thought worked, and I like when she was like hugging him. I felt like, I could feel like emotion there also.
That could feel like emotion.
No, it felt like it. That's what I'm saying.
Mom is just jealous that she's not the family member who gets to be Princess Leia. Should we explain? You know what I was thinking of when I watched it? I also thought, oh right, because Jeremy's related to Harrison Ford.
No, we're not going to explain that.
Oh, so, explain the family connection that we have with Star Wars.
Yeah, because I was talking to our grandmother, and she also brought that up. It's like, yeah, we have to go see our relative. Like, and I just sort of said, yep, we should.
You're like, I gotta see mine too.
I did. I forgot that I said that, but no.
Good old Unky Harris or whatever he is to
you. So getting back to
characters,
Kylo Ren. I liked how he's like he wears the mask because he's like Vader wore a mask. He was cool. I gotta wear one too.
Right, and it's like him. You know what I mean?
I also like he was saying like I feel like the call from the light, which is like, well, it clearly means like he feels like these emotions of care for his parents. So which is like that's what's like it's like I can't deal with this. It was very interesting. It's definitely like the opposite of Luke and Luke's journey, which is sort of interesting.
Right. No. I think that was really effective. And like and it was also kind of updated a bit. He was kind of like his outfit was kind of leaner. You know what I mean? He was, and then even when he took off the helmet, for a second, sometimes when you take off the helmet, I was like, oh, this is gonna be some whiny boy or whatever. But it's Adam. So, he was finished yelling, and then he was gonna go have like weird sex with Lena Dunham.
But he was kind of whining, but that's what kind of was interesting about his character.
No, it wasn't a bad whine. I'm saying it makes sense. Like I'm really happy for him. He got that role. Because I'm such a fan of that character on Girls. I think that's one of the most interesting characters, and it kind of makes sense for him to do it. And he's capable of that sort of nuance.
Right. So I liked it. I liked his performance a lot. He was very interesting, and he was clearly like this. He's sort of like damaged, and that doesn't really. It's like, you guys just don't understand me. I love how there. Also, by the way, you probably don't know that there's this new Twitter account was set up, which is called Emo Kylo Ren.
Yeah, well, they probably were. That phrasing was probably used in the writers' room, at some point, saying like we're gonna make him more of like an emo, like an emo type character. I'm sure they've used the word emo before, maybe not in the screenplay itself. I'm sure someone mentioned that in the creation of that character.
Let me just give you a couple snippets from his Twitter account. You can't truly appreciate the Imperial March until you hear it on vinyl. Force slams his bedroom door.
Yeah.
Darth Vader had no father. I envy him.
Like also what was good about him is also here's the thing. It was a pretty good seamless transition for when he took off and put back on the helmet. That's not an easy thing to do because sometimes in movies when someone takes off the helmet, that's it.
Yeah.
But when he put it back on, you still believed who he was. Like I didn't feel like it was taken away.
Right.
And and so I thought that was actually possibly the most interesting part of the whole movie, which is good, is probably one of their intentions. One of the big
Right.
intentions was they need to make this Kylo Ren character a really interesting one. Because as you're saying, he's like the inverse journey of Luke, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
which is
Exactly.
which is cool. And also, as you're saying, that final scene was good when he was saying, because it was weird, because it was like, it's kind of like, he was channeling his real feelings to
Mhm.
actually, I don't know if he was trying to trick Han Solo
I don't think
into
he even knew exactly what was going to happen. I think like was like this. That was his path. He could have like, he was a branch there. He could have either given him the lightsaber or killed him, and it was
Yeah.
sort of like,
I
one
mean, it
way.
was clear he was going to kill him,
Well,
by
yes,
the way, the
but
rhythm of it, but still,
but I'm
yeah.
just saying though that was where it was going to happen.
But it's an interesting thing that he's saying, like, help me. He's like, help me. I don't know if I have the strength to do this. But he was kind of saying, like, the strength to actually kill you or whatever. But he's like, help. But it's like a weird twisted thing. So that adds a lot of nuance to it, which
Right.
I think is good.
And now just as a sort of comparison point, you look back at like Anakin, and it's like, I don't like sand. Why just I killed the sand people. You know, oh, Padme don't die. What do you mean I killed her? That doesn't make any sense. I just
And
choked
the
her.
women and the children and the women.
Okay.
Oh God.
God. So
Uh,
this was like whiny, but in a way that like made sense.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
like, I get why this guy is on the dark side. All right, so let
yeah.
me move on to my favorite new character, who is the girl Rey.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an actress, Daisy Ridley, who has not been in very much, just like some British TV stuff. And she had a pretty big role to have to deal with here. There are
Yeah.
so many scenes where she wasn't saying anything.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but she had to say a lot too, and she had to like convincingly do physical stuff. I thought she was just so great in this
Yeah,
movie.
you're right. I don't think I say the word flawless, not in the sense of like, because there are people who have better performances, but I don't think I think it was a completely rounded performance. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, any deficiencies you might want to say were only just because of writing things, and that not anything to
Yeah.
do with her performance itself.
Yeah.
I mean, I love, how that, like when she's just sort of connecting with, Han Solo, and they're like, oh yeah, and then, he gives her the gun. He's like, I can take care of myself. Yeah, I know. That's why I'm giving you this.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And
And with the whole thing with like her being in touch with the force, like that was convincing that she
right.
has that like in her,
And I like,
and when she switches, go ahead, sorry.
well, yeah, so like when she's getting interrogated, and
Right.
it's sort
Yeah.
of like he sort of flips a switch, and she's like able to push back. He's like, what's going
Uh-huh.
on? I also like that because they took the helmet off. We can see his face, like something's wrong. Why is this not working?
Hmm.
And he's like, you're afraid. You're afraid you'll never be as great as Vader. And he's like, what? Shut up! No, no, you shut up. And I
Yeah.
don't. And also, I mean, I liked how she was like with Daniel Craig, like, you're gonna loosen these restraints. I'm gonna tighten them, you little whore. It's like, no, you're gonna loosen them, and you can see she kind of like gets into the zen of it. Like, yes, no, you're going to loosen them. Yes, I'm going to loosen them. I thought,
Wiggle your big toe.
yeah,
Well, that's a little different,
yeah, I
but
also like, when Finn and Han are coming to rescue her. He's like, all right, we gotta go find her, and then Han's like, what? Why are you nodding? Like, It's like it's like, oh, there she is, escaping. He's like, yeah, well, she's probably gonna go find a plane, so let's go to where the ships are.
yeah, yeah.
And not only that, but there are different moments that work very well. So we already mentioned some of them, but one of them that just like I thought, oh, that was just amazing. When after Kylo Ren like slashes Finn and nearly kills him, and he's like reaching out for Luke's lightsaber to like pull it to him, and then it flies. He's like, I can't. What's wrong? And it flies. It's like the same expression that we saw earlier when he was struggling before.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just saying, there's that little tie back, but then it shoots past him, and she grabs it and ignites it. I was like, this is like a beautiful scene, what we're seeing
Yeah.
here.
Also, just the whole like dark snowfall in the forest thing was just
Everything
pretty
about it
visually appealing. Yeah.
was great, and just the fact that she's the one who actually has to fight back. I thought it was just so great that they made that choice. It seemed to me the exact correct thing. And not only that, they're all the little pieces of the fight work really well. Like we were talking about lightsaber stuff earlier. I like, I didn't realize it first until I sort of thought about it, but you remember how he kept smacking his side?
Yeah. What was that?
Remember, that's where he got shot. He was making himself get hurt to increase his anger
Oh,
because
yeah.
that's how the
So I
dark
was thinking
side
like that's
works.
kind of like a dark. Well, I was thinking he was just trying to be like tough, like, oh, I don't care.
No, it's because he was trying to hurt himself so that it would make him mad to make him stronger in the dark side. That's why he was doing that. And you know, I liked, not only that, but like just the choreography. We were talking before about all that stuff. Like think about the Matrix choreography. Yeah, we were talking about you know how people were getting into that. But think about it this way: what was the best? All right, who are the best two fights in the first Matrix movie?
Well, there's a one where he's training with Morpheus in the dojo, the computerized dojo, and then the one with Smith in the train station. That's what I would
Right.
say.
Oh yeah, and
I
then
mean, I guess there was that really good one with Morpheus and Smith. That was
right.
good in its way.
Those are all good. And what are those things? Like what are things all those have in common? You feel it. They have a flow where it's like smack, punch. Even when you miss, it's like there's like
Yeah.
kineticism there. It flows. It's highly choreographed, but it's like energy. It flows. You know what I'm
Well,
saying? And this
I
was
think I
in
think
the
I think
same year as
Phantom Menace had that too with the last fight. But yeah, go
the
ahead.
last fight. Which fight is that?
Oh, with when he kills when what's Maul kills Qui-Gon.
Yeah, except it's too long.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
way,
but
but
go ahead. Go
I was
ahead.
gonna, I was talking like if you look at the Phantom Menace, it's basically like a dance. Like there's no chance that they're ever gonna hit each other. Everyone knows exactly where it's going. It isn't until like the very end of the fight, when Qui-Gon is facing himself, that it's actually like it seems like a real fight again.
Well, the whole thing with him pacing when they're like waiting for like
Yeah.
the doors to open or whatever, that was good right
Yes, I
there. That
agree.
was
And
one of those.
Qui-Gon was. That's what I'm saying. That's the point where it was actually interesting.
Right, right.
So my point is that never seemed like it was like, oh, this is kind of fun. But when you rewatch it, you're like, oh, this is just like a dance.
Yeah,
It's just too choreographed. It feels too fake.
right,
This is like it's like a performance that you would watch, like in a ballet. Like, it's like, oh, it's like, this is a ballet fight.
right.
Yeah, it's very impressive. It's athletic. It's impressive that they are barely hitting each other at that speed. But it doesn't seem like they're going to hit each other.
Right,
This
right.
one, they're like swinging at each other. They're hitting
Yep.
lightsabers,
Yeah, and people are actually they're actually getting hit. Everyone
Right,
and everyone gets badly hit in some way at some
right.
point.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really is key. You know.
Right, but then she's able to connect with the Force, like to focus and like drive him back,
Mm-hmm.
and that sort of leads to the ending. So I want to ask you what you think of the final scene when she sees Luke and holds out the lightsaber, and they don't say anything. What did you think of that?
So once again, I mean, they had to put that scene in there, and if this weren't Star Wars, I would think it's kind of contrived, but I thought it was fine. I
Yeah,
mean,
but you can't just say if it wasn't Star Wars because the whole point is we know this character. So there's all this history and everything that, like, when he sees her, it's like you look at, I thought Mark Hamill did a really great job in
he
that
did,
scene.
he did.
It's
He
sort of
did
like
actually
everything
like
goes
it
through
wasn't
his face.
cheesy. It wasn't cheesy the way he did it. So I guess you have to give it up to the actors that it didn't get cheesy. He did have a really good like look on his face.
Right. It's
Oh.
like it's like everything is all coming together at once. Like, seeing this lightsaber that who knows, I mean, I think this is the one that he lost when Vader cut off his hand.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like he's seeing this again.
He didn't have. What about the one he had in Return of the Jedi?
That was a new one. I guess the movie wasn't clear about which lightsaber it was. It doesn't matter. The point is he
Right,
didn't.
because wasn't the new one green that he used?
Yes. So
Right, because blue was the original. Right, right, right.
no, that's right. I think the new one was Obi-Wan's. I think that's what happened. I think so. Or something. Who it doesn't matter. The point is that it's like you can see like he's like, okay, I'm seeing like a young me in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And like and he's like remembering that he failed Kylo Ren. It's like everything is like hitting him at
Yeah,
once.
that's true. That's true. And it's also this whole thing about him being kind of like, this monk on a mountain,
Yeah.
just
So I thought he
constantly.
looked great. I love the beard. I thought it
Yeah.
was a good look, and I was just very
And because
impressed by
he
that.
kind of looked like Obi-Wan, which was probably the point.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. So, you know, I felt like the ending worked for me. I was like, oh, what a tease, but I also really liked it. Uh, I mean, that's what I said when I was like, I was sitting in the audience. I was like, man, what a tease.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's funny because you know, there are definitely little problems here and there, and a lot of things that's like, why did they, like, you could say, like, oh, okay, the light speed took way too fast, especially when you compare it to the original trilogy. Yeah, that's true. It was really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the technology is better or whatever you want to say, but I don't know. Or, why could they see the super weapon from everywhere? Because I guess the explanation is that it's a hyperspace, weapon, and it's like, okay, I guess, it's just sort of, it seems a little odd from that
Right.
perspective, and there's little things here and there, but my feeling is I just love the character beats so much, and the few things that I would mention that are like, these were really big standouts to me, that I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to say I thought the movie was a success because of those things. Like, what did this movie have to do? And I already think it did more than that.
Right.
What did it have to do to be like a success, And, you know, I had issues with Return of the Jedi too. There's a lot of stretches that I don't think work as well. But on the other hand, I think I still like a lot of the guerrilla stuff with the Ewoks. I think the Jabba stuff goes on too long, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because it's basically like three different. They start three times. We're gonna have a plan. Nope, another one. Nope, another one.
Right.
And it's like, okay, okay. It's kind of fun, but it's also like, I'm not gonna say it's like impeccable or anything, but like the
Right.
ending with him against Vader and the Emperor, I just thought that was
Yeah.
impeccable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was, I mean, obviously one of the most classic things, in cinema. Um, so another thing I want to mention, I think was probably my favorite part of this movie, which was just an overarching thing they did with it that we were talking about this on the phone right before we started the podcast was, what was the name of the woman with the watering hole or whatever they called it? What was
Maz
her name?
Takana.
Maz? Yeah, yeah. So I think she was the one who said like I've seen the dark side rise. If you, right, it was her who said that, right?
Yeah, Maz Kanata.
Right. So she said something to explain. She said something like, at one point she's like, I've seen the dark side rise in many forms. For there's the Sith, the Empire, now the First Order, and then that I don't know if that was always the intention behind the dark side or if this was a new thing, but I thought that was a really cool way to bring stuff together because when I first heard about the First Order, like once again, I didn't know what about the First Order or anything like. I didn't know what the plot of this movie was because I didn't really look it up ahead of time. So when I saw it, I was like, okay, I guess there's still the Empire, and that's the whole thing. And so I was like, and then when in the prequels, when I thought about the Sith, I was like, well, they're the precursor to the Empire. That's just what it is. But then the way she explained it, it brought it together the whole like universe together in a really cool way, which is just this idea that the whole point is that the dark side is this thing that keeps manifesting, itself over and over again in different forms, and that perhaps it's something that's always has to be dealt with, and that's the whole point of the Jedi to keep balance and order, to keep like the dark side in check, and actually probably that's the way the dark side people in the dark side view it, is actually they're bringing order in their way. But once again I thought that was really cool because it's like it's just this thing that keeps rising up. And in fact, even though like it's hard to in this day and age to talk without seeming really amateur or immature. It's hard to talk about to like just have movies or stories just about the fight of good versus evil. Like a lot of people don't accept it now, but that actually kind of makes sense in this context. in this movie, just this idea, because it does actually happen that history repeats itself, and this I think is a sort of manifestation of that, showing that like something like the dark side, it keeps like showing up over and over again, and I'm glad that they sort of brought that in this movie. I thought that was an interesting perspective on it and tied it all together.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because a lot of times people will, make certain nitpicks and complaints, and I think there's some legitimate, grievances some people have with the movie, and I definitely feel like, some people built it up too high or too low, and that definitely helped
Right.
when they went in. Like, if you had really low expectations, that probably meant you enjoyed it better. For me, I felt my expectations were about right, considering I thought, like, I don't know what I'm going to think, but by that time I saw it, there had been mostly really good reviews. So I'm like, I'll probably like it, is what I thought. And
it got 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, right? I mean, that's
which maybe is that the highest? That's a good question.
Highest of what?
Rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Ever?
Oh yeah, Empire Strikes Back only has 94%.
Oh, you mean the high? Yeah, but it's probably just because this is the new one and all that. That's probably just what it is. It's not the highest thing ever. I mean, Mad Max got like 98%.
No, I didn't say no. Best of the Star Trek series.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, no, of course not best ever. I mean, this year already had some things that were higher than that because there's some like specific,
And by the way, we obviously we're about to wrap up this podcast, but whenever we do our like nerd year in review or whatever, this year represented very well for nerddom. Very well. There was some great both TV and movie stuff for nerdiness. So we shall talk about that next time during the return of Nerd Punches Nerd.
Yeah, that sounds about right. All right, well, I feel like, I don't like giving numbers to things, so I'm not going to, because, it'll change, maybe a point here, a half a point there. I can't be that specific. Anytime I give ratings like that, they're always going to change. So that's why I stopped doing it, because I just couldn't. I knew I was going to change my mind. Usually not significantly, but, when you give a number, it's sort of like, you said this was 3 out of 4. What, you taking 3.5 now? What are you, a liar? Get out of here.
Get out of here with your 3.789.
All right, well, I think then we're going to wrap it up. So, this has been fun. Nerd you later.